Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to Overpass 2. This game finally gets its full worldwide release today, with it releasing finally in the US on consoles, meaning that it is available for all the major platforms and basically available in any region. So a big thank you to the developers for partnering up with me to be able to get some content and play through Overpass 2. So let's get straight into it with episode 1. We're going to go through the career, have a bit of a tutorial, see all about the garage, the career mode, and all of the different kind of disciplines that are in this game. Now the first thing we've got to do is make our character, as well as make our race team as well, which is actually a lot more depth to this than I actually ever expected. I just kind of expected this game to sort of put us in a bunch of trials and such, but to see there's actually a depth to it in terms of creating your team, running your team, was actually the biggest surprise. I went into this game with zero expectations and straight away it already exceeded those by actually giving a lot of depth, not only to making your character, making your team, but actually the running of it. And that's what I'm going to showcase mainly in this video. The whole micromanaging your own team, as well as running the events. You can sim them if you want to, but I actually fully recommend taking part in them. There's some brilliant tracks in this game. There is just quite a lot more to this game than I ever expected, to be honest. So with our character created, it was time for Bobby to make his appearance. This guy's going to be quite annoying, to be honest, in the early game. He's basically there to give us a tutorial, give us a rundown on everything, whether that's in the garage, on the track, getting used to the vehicles. He's going to be there pretty much the entire early game, taking us through everything and anything to do with this game. Now in terms of the disciplines, you've got a lot of focus on UTVs. They're kind of the sort of main meat of the game, I'd say. Then you've also got rock crawlers, which are absolutely awesome and some of my favorite vehicles in pretty much any racing game ever. And then we also have ATVs as well. So there's sort of 3 different disciplines, a ton of tracks, as well as in career mode we're going to have to do the running of our entire team by ourselves, whether that's hiring and firing people, fixing up our vehicles, researching and development for upgrades just to make them better. There is a ton of depth to this career mode. In all honesty, it really did catch me out. I honestly didn't think it was going to be like this, and it's kind of akin to something like the sort of old WRC games where there is a ton to do, whether you're testing new vehicles or upgrading your vehicles, getting it ready for the next stage, making sure you've got the right tires for each certain stage, making sure that you are fully prepared. There is a ton to do. So with that out of the way, let's head over to the garage and get this career mode started. So the first thing we're going to be doing once we get over here is to go to the garage and basically talk about staff. Now these are the people that are going to be doing all the running in the background. We have a lot of control over them. So in terms of, like, you know, getting them to research stuff, or, you know, getting them in the right place and making sure that we know what we're in for in terms of events, they're going to do all that in the background. It's up to us to run them. They're all different quality and such. So, you know, say like a 0-star compared to a 3-star is going to be a lot worse. And it's all about just kind of upgrading them as we get the team bigger and better as we go through. But before we do anything else, we need to now get used to all of these vehicles. And the first one we're going to focus on is the UTV with the UTV tutorial. Now, in terms of the UTVs, these are absolutely amazing to drive, to be honest. At first, I was a little bit confused because it felt like it was sped up, but the more I've kind of played it, the more I've got used to it, and that's just kind of like the only slight nitpick I actually had. But in terms of overall the feel and, you know, running them and learning them, it was actually a lot more interesting than I expected it to be. So in terms of your UTV events, kind of as we go through career, you're going to notice that there's things such as closed courses, you've got your trials as well, you've got showcase events where you're doing a lot of climbing in them. So the main thing to do with this tutorial of the UTVs is basically just teach us the essentials, you know, things such as 4-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, and diff as well, which is obviously going to be for the more sort of steeper climbs and such, and there's going to be a ton of that in this game. So this area we're seeing here is basically the open world section of the game. It's basically a place where you can just go in and basically use it as a big playground to test out all the different vehicles, and I'll actually showcase that in a video tomorrow, just focusing purely on this open area. It's actually really good, especially if you're not only just trying to learn vehicles, or if you just kind of want to explore. There's actually quite a lot to do here, and this is going to be the kind of, you know, background for where we're going to take place with all these tutorials. So getting used to the vehicles was definitely quite weird, to be honest, especially in terms of running rear wheel drive. I noticed that it just makes them want to spin out all the time, and definitely, you know, when you're in the kind of standard, you know, UTV, which has got very little in terms of upgrades and very little in terms of actually being competitive later into the game, it was certainly, you know, a kind of weird experience running it in the likes of rear wheel drive. So to be honest, in terms of the UTVs, the main two that I recommend using, and the ones that I found that I've used the most into the later game, is four wheel drive and diff, obviously when it comes to the more tougher obstacles, and that's what this tutorial is really here to do. So we've obviously had a look at four-wheel drive, we've had a look at the rear-wheel drive, which we obviously used on the road there, definitely far too slippy for my liking, and now we're going to see what the diff is all about. So we're going to head left into this section here, and there's going to be a ton of rocks, and this is where the game really is awesome. Getting your way through these sections of track, especially when you're in the middle of the race, is just absolutely incredible, and especially with the AI, you will see some funny moments with them, you know, kind of going through this game where they'll just kind of absolutely hammer them and then just absolutely crash out. So now we've got to tackle some rocks here in the UTV with the diff, and we're going to try and work our way through here nice and cleanly. Try not to roll it. I did have a few occasions where, as you can see, almost ended up on the roof. So now we've learned all about suspension, and we're going to have to sort of put that all together to do a bit of a track race. So what this is, you know, kind of like a time trial that you see in other games. It's just a tutorial to kind of put everything to use and really kind of, you know, make use of this UTV that you're seeing here in front of us. So we're going to get straight to it, straight over the jumps. As you can see, definitely a, you know, nice bit of air there, and we're going to hit another jump there, just trying to, you know, land it properly. Definitely being overly aggressive is not going to pay off in this game. It's a nice mix between not only needing to be fast, but also trying to work out how you're going to get your vehicle through each section, and I absolutely love it about this game, to be honest. It is probably the best thing, and it's part of the reason why I actually find it so unique. You know, with a lot of racing games these days in this kind of, you know, genre, going for sort of track races, to be able to go into an off-road racer that is just completely different from the norm, that sort of focuses on the likes of UTVs and stuff. Not only was I getting a mix of sort of the old MX games back in the day when we had the likes of the UTVs and the buggies and such, and all the different classes, I was also getting, you know, kind of vibes from the likes of Mud Runner and such at times, in terms of sort of like the locations. So it really is quite good. So lap 1 complete. This is just, again, just showing us all about timing and personal bests and how it's going to work as we go through stages. Like I said, some stages are like basically a big trial, and you'll go through sections, whereas some are kind of lapped and they'll loop back around, meaning that you essentially can get a better chance at doing better the next couple of times around. So we're going to follow the path down again, just sort of making use of the different diffs and stuff. Mainly we just need four-wheel drive for here, and just to ensure that we're sticking the landing when it comes to the UTV. So we're going to push on forward. If it looks like it's sped up, it's actually not. Again, it's just kind of a weird thing with this game, that it just feels sped up with how you're kind of bumping over. And from what I kind of briefly remember of Overpass 1, it was sort of like one of the main downsides for me there. But, you know, it is just part of the game, and quite, you know, quickly you will adjust to just how this game feels. So we're going to come around the final corner here and finish up our UTV tutorial, meaning that, well, we've had a decent look and we know everything we need to know now going forward for the UTVs. So they're over and done with, and we're going to move on next to the ATVs. Now these are definitely a little bit different. There's many different types. So there's some ATVs that'll be sort of like rear wheel drive only. Some will obviously have the diff and the four wheel drive with no rear wheel drive. It's quite a nice selection. Just here we're getting told by Bobby about sponsors. This is going to help us obviously bring money into the team, fund better vehicles, fund better parts, and again, it's just more about the sort of depth of the game. It's a really cool thing. I like being able to get sponsors on board, completing different objectives throughout my race, but now we're going to move obviously on quickly to the ATV tutorial. So Bobby's once again going to blast on and all about the ATVs and how they're going to handle their different terrains. Now we've got a bit of an obstacle course here, again in the sort of same location. This is kind of the testing area for the game, and to be honest, I actually found that the ATVs were actually quite good, to be honest. I really didn't expect much with them. Usually kind of ATVs in a lot of games are kind of there as an afterthought, but instantly I was quite gelling with them and just kind of getting used to how they look, how they feel, and really what we can do with these, and it was quite surprising. So the one we've got here, I believe, is called the King Quad. Again, it's got all the different types of diff. Some of the quad bikes again will just be rear wheel drive, and they're quite tough little machines, but this one is a sort of a nice basis to kind of get used to the different things in the game. So we've got things such as tire obstacles, and we're going to learn all about the cones now. Now what these areas are areas where you've got to very carefully work your way through. If you don't, you're going to be taking time penalties, and trust me, some of these areas, especially in the sort of main stages, can be very, very tough. Then we're going to take ourselves up this log part, again just managing to get ourselves up and over, which was you know, quite an experience on a quad bike. I really didn't expect them to start throwing in quite steep inclines in the quads. I expected most of it to just be sort of in this sort of rocky bumpy area, but you know, the game definitely didn't hold back in terms of, look, you are going to be taking these vehicles over some absolutely tough terrain, and yeah, that's exactly what we've got. Now we've got something here called the seesaw. Essentially what Bobby's going to be telling us in the background is all about how to work it, how you are going to avoid the penalties, and again, it's one of the sort of main, what I like to call the main obstacles of the game. You're going to see these mainly in sort of your showcase events, at least in my experience with the game so far. And how they work is you take yourself to the top, kind of balance it, make sure you don't fall off, wait for it to finally drop, and once it's down, just drive yourself off. They're relatively simple, but again, they're definitely a lot of fun in the ATVs. So that's a quick look at the ATVs. Now we're going to have a look at research and development. Now you will earn skill points along the way depending on sort of how you're performing, when you're leveling up, or how you're doing in events. You'll get these along the way, and you know, you'll kind of use these to upgrade things such as your staff, you know, your income, your sponsors, all this kind of stuff. Once again, more depth to the game, as well as vehicle R&D, which is a little bit different. You sort of tell your mechanics what you want them to do, and they'll focus on that and upgrade that part so it's unlocked for your vehicle. You know, that can be anything from cages, tires, vehicles themselves. There is a ton to have a look at in R&D. What you're seeing here, though, is my favorite vehicle in this entire game. These are the rock crawlers. They are definitely the highlight of the game for me. A lot of these are some really, really tough sections. Once you kind of get into the game, you'll sort of start off, it'll count you down, and then you'll realize that you are basically doing a 90-degree vertical up in one of these things. It's just absolutely insane what you can do with these. And these are definitely been the not only the most enjoyable, but definitely the highlight of my entire time with Overpass 2 so far. Absolutely love these vehicles. Climbing up some of these ridiculous things with your diff, as well as, like, you know, trying to get back onto the smaller sections with your four-wheel drive and such, is just an absolute blast. These are the highlight of the game. There is no denying that. So now we've figured out how to use a rock crawler. We've now you know, got to go ahead and basically do a full time trial. This is going to mix everything together. This is where the rock crawlers really do excel. And again, the stage design for that these rock crawlers are going to be taking on are just absolutely fantastic. So credit to the developers there, really enjoying the different kind of stages, whether it's sort of a short full climb stage or it's more of a longer drawn out trial stage. I've really been liking some of these stage designs, and it shows nowhere better than when you're using one of these rock crawlers to absolutely throw yourself about. So we're in open diff here. We're trying to get ourselves through these little sort of rocks here. Again, this is what these vehicles are made for. Now, straight into four-wheel drive, and we're going to be able to open it up a little bit. Bit more of a bouncy section, but definitely a lot flatter than sort of the big climb we had there. And then again, we've got this big, tough section here. So straight into diff, try and get ourselves straight up there. We're going to try and drag ourselves all the way to the top. And again, it's all about trying to, you know, find the right suspension setting and the right diff setting and such for each event. And this is where it really shows with the rock crawlers. They're absolutely incredible. So finally we're up there. We've got another section here coming towards the latter part of the stages now. We're going to get ourselves up there quite nicely, to be honest, and start going back onto the dirt. So we've done most of the climb here. We've got to try and get through this final section. Again, mainly just rocks and such. Little bit of a climb up here. Or we're going to be able to manage to get ourselves up rather quite easy, to be honest, in the end. Definitely, you know, one thing that I found was I was really overthinking how I'm going to be tackling these sort of parts with the rock bouncer, but definitely managed to gel with these vehicles quite quickly, to be honest. They are an absolute joy to use. So that's a quick look at what you can expect the first time you jump in Overpass 2. So later on I'll be doing a live stream from 1 PM BST to about 3 PM BST, checking a bit more in depth about the career mode. So once everything's got set up, that'll be kind of what you expect kind of going forward as we try and work our way up through the divisions, up through the leagues, you know, checking out everything again with like the UTVs in action, kind of away from the tutorial zone, as well as like the ATVs, rock crawlers and such. Again, big thank you to the developers for obviously partnering up with me to make some content on this game. Absolutely congratulations to them for the full worldwide release of this title. I'm definitely enjoying my time with it. I'll have another video out tomorrow checking out the sort of open world playground section of the game. It's definitely worth looking at that, especially if you want to kind of hone your skills going forward. I'll see you later, guys. Peace.